Hello there, my beautiful souls, and welcome to the show. I think you're just going to love this episode. I am interviewing Britt Michaelian. She is a frequency artist, a quantum healer, and a Reiki Master. She also holds a master's degree in art therapy and marriage and family therapy. And she's been healing others for over 20 years in many different arenas, from the hospital setting to one-on-one clients to her healing house event that unites art and well-being. And we talked a lot today about the frequencies that we carry within us and how they can either heal us, heal our loved ones, and heal the world, or do the exact opposite, and how important it is to manage our own energy so that we can enjoy our lives, so that we can feel good, but also so that we can bring healing into the world. And we talk about the ways in which you can do that. And we also talk about how important accessing, being in touch with our intuition is if we want to be able to manage our energy and move through this world in a way that's healing and uplifting. So I think you're going to love this. I can't wait to hear your feedback on this episode. Britt and I said we could probably do a whole other episode on the idea of forgiveness. So maybe I will, I shouldn't say the idea, the practice of forgiveness. Maybe I'll have her back and we can talk about that. All right, enjoy this, and I will talk to you at the end. Welcome to the Midlife Purpose Project, a space for spiritually seeking midlife women who are looking for more purpose, joy, peace, and connection in their lives. Using the ancient wisdom of yoga philosophy and modern science, we'll unpack what's been holding you back from living the life that you deserve. Together, we'll journey toward a life that feels authentically like you, one that's in alignment with your soul's purpose. And we'll do it with a whole lot of love and compassion. Come along, let's journey together. Okay, Britt, welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here. You are about to talk on a topic that I am really passionate about. And as we mentioned just before we hit record, I've become even more passionate about it. So the timing of this interview is fantastic. So if you could just introduce yourself to the audience and tell them what you do.
Yes. So just a brief interview or a brief introduction to the many things that I do. So I'm a Reiki master with master's degrees in marriage and family therapy and art therapy. And through some experiences that I had, I also was an exhibiting artist, and now I'm actually creating art that transmits healing energy, healing frequencies wherever it exists. And I'm also working with women who are looking, and actually a few men who are looking to kind of tap into their inner wisdom so that they can overcome a problem that they're facing. Some of them have health challenges. I have some patients who have cancer and they want to know why. So I do quantum healing hypnosis with them. And then I also do a little bit of channeling beforehand so that it really just helps them to understand the language of their soul. And so anyway, it's just, to ask me what I do these days, I feel like we're all so multi-hyphenate.
Yes.
But so my art is definitely a huge part of what I do. And then also working with clients is just a huge part of what I do as well. And I feel like with everything going on in the world, intuition just is really important. And as we were going to talk about, I think energy hygiene is so very important right now, and just understanding what that is.
Yes, I 100% agree with you. And in fact, this weekend, I'm going to get my Reiki 1 certification because
Yay.
I really want to start incorporating it into the work I do with my clients, because I believe so strongly in the value of this energy work and how we can do a lot of different things, but if our energy is blocked or stuck in some way, it's really preventing us from moving forward. And so these energy practices are so important.
Yeah, for sure. And, the thing is too, is we're understanding right now with people getting more comfortable with the quantum field and quantum physics and quantum mechanics and all of this. We're understanding that, we are these spiritual beings in these physical bodies. And because we are these spiritual beings, that means that we're energy, and so our field around our body, we are in communion with other people. We're feeling their energies. And so it's really important. We do pick up things from other people, just like we pick up viruses and bacteria and things like that in the physical body. We pick up things like that in our energetic body. So it's important to be learning about this, and Reiki is a really excellent way to learn. And the thing is too with Reiki that's really cool is once you get into Reiki 2, I think Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 you learn. Reiki 1 is really more about yourself and in your own energy, and then Reiki 2 is about healing others. And the thing is that's really cool is for people like us who just want to help heal the world, is it actually gives us a way to do that.
Yes,
to help
yes,
clear the energy in the world around us, whether people are paying us to do it or not, and if we're doing that work, when we show up to do that, it's a really beautiful gift to be able to do for other people, whether they're aware of it or not.
Yes, it really, really is. Actually, I end all of my yoga classes. I am certified in something called Saima Diksha, which is an energy practice. And at the end of every one of my yoga classes, I offer that Diksha out to the people who are in my class. And it's really powerful. I mean, once you tap in to the fact, the truth that you are an energetic being, you can really get into the stream of that energy. I'm not sure exactly. You probably will be able to verbalize it better than me, but it's like we all are these energetic beings, but we feel and we sense ourselves and identify as three-dimensional beings. But once you really become aware that you're an energetic being and that energy is constantly flowing in and around and through you, you can tap into it. You can actually enter it in a way that feels very different. Your body actually feels different. You don't feel like this heavy, solid, three-dimensional being. So maybe you could explain that better. I feel like I'm stumbling over
that's
my
really
words.
interesting. No, you're not. It actually makes perfect sense what you're saying. And it's so important that we understand, we're taught we have these 5 senses and they're gifts, they're beautiful senses. We can see, we can hear. And sometimes it's interesting when somebody loses their hearing or they lose their sight, they oftentimes that energy will open up that portal for them to experience more intuition because they did lose that form of in the 3-dimensional space, that sense. And so, I mean, sometimes if they lose their sight, their hearing gets stronger, things like that as well. But it is interesting when we tap into, so awareness is the key, awareness and intention. And with energy healing, it's very much about that intention. And there are a lot of people who are talking about this right now. I don't know if it's just because I am kind of drawing that in with the algorithm. Whatever. It's so weird right now how the algorithm is online and when you're looking for something to watch on YouTube or, a TV show will just come across or a movie that will come across your awareness that is aligned with whatever it is that you're thinking about. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Energy.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is energy, right? You're
it
attracting to yourself. You're resonating with a certain energy, and then that thing is showing up for you.
Exactly. And so it's like everything around us right now is just pointing us to this direction that we need to pay attention to. Energy. And so I lead a monthly intuition workshop as well, because I feel that if, learning energy hygiene and Reiki and all of that is very important. And actually what happens for a lot of people when they do Reiki training is it opens up their third eye in a more direct way. And they do become more aware intuitively. And so so a lot of people want to kind of dive deeper into that. And for me, when I became a Reiki master, part of the reason why I do a lot of the work that I do, and I kind of switch directions from more traditional art and more traditional art therapy in the hospital setting to being more of an energy worker. And then my art is also kind of in that space as well, is because I experienced the loss of my mother had cancer and then she passed away, and then my dad had cancer and he's still around, but I was with him during treatment. And then my sister got diagnosed with cancer. And so her journey was 4 years. And in that period of time, I became a Reiki master. and I would Reiki her. And while that was going on, and while she was transitioning into spirit, there were so many amazing synchronicities and intuitive hits and, you know, communication from the spirit world and things that I needed to learn the skills to understand, like how to sort of clear my energy and make sure that I was, you know, at the higher frequency, so that it was easier for people to communicate with me like my mother. I wasn't looking to speak with, you know, anybody else. But anyway, so it is interesting, except maybe God. Up here would be great. But, you know, it's interesting when you start kind of going down this path. There are a lot of different spiritual teachers and energy workers and things like that. And it's really important, just going back to this idea of energy hygiene, it's really important to recognize what your own energy is so that you can notice if there's kind of a lower vibration energy that's either entering your field or is maybe sticking around. Yeah. And so that's why it's important to kind of develop this intuitive practice, because that's really knowing your own energy. It's knowing your own soul and having communication with your soul. When we're in this physical experience, we're not really taught how to do that. We're just here in the density of the physical world. And so it's really important. I see all of these things working together, your energy hygiene, your intuition, and then healing practices. And, you know, healing practices, some people are getting a little overwhelmed with these ideas of wellness practices. So I just want to like give anybody listening a sigh of relief to know that it's really just the awareness and the intention behind it. You don't need, yes, you know, we do need to exercise, and yoga is a wonderful way to kind of go through several of the healing practices that I talk about, so that you are, you know, clearing your energy and really yoga is a really excellent practice for your mind, body, and your spirit. We know this. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that I really understood that to the degree that I do now until I had gotten several years into the practice. For me in the beginning, it was exercise. I'm going to exercise.
That's most people's portal into yoga. Yes. And some people it stays there, and other people it goes much deeper. Yeah.
And it's great exercise. But for me, I didn't want to do like an aggressive vinyasa every single time. And it wasn't until I started doing restorative that I started having like massive intuitive downloads during like, you know, holding those poses. Yeah. So yeah. And I'm sure you can speak to this as well.
Yes. Absolutely. Yoga is such a beautiful, energetic practice, mind, body, spirit. And if for people to get an understanding of like, what does the energy feel like in your body? I think a great example of that is at the end of yoga, we go into savasana, and many people may recognize that sensation of maybe like lightness or tingling in the body, like that's energy, right? So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? That is energy. And when you go into yoga and you're doing all of the breathing and you're doing all of the movement and the twisting and building heat, even if you're moving slowly, or even if you're in a restorative class, you're moving energy around your body, right? So that's why it's such a beautiful energetic practice that helps you to cleanse your energies, because you're moving energy that could be getting stuck in certain places in your body and really allowing it to transmute and release. But that end of class kind of tingly sensation is such an easy way for people to tap into this understanding. And I also think that, you know, it is, I agree with you. I'm like, is this actually exploding more, or because I am resonating with it more, am I seeing more of it? I don't have an answer to that either. But I think the science now is really supporting what this ancient wisdom has been saying for thousands of years. And so that kind of, I think that's helping the movement of this idea, because now we have actual scientific proof that we are quantum beings, and Absolutely. That we are made out of energy, and that our energy impacts the energy of everything around us and vice versa. And I think we've also had experiences like that. Like if you've ever walked into a room where maybe there was an argument happening before you walk in the room, and you walk in and you're like, oof, what's going on in here? Right. feels a little rough. Or if you've ever been with another person who was uplifting, right? On the opposite end of the spectrum, where their energy was almost contagious and maybe you weren't feeling so great. And then you had an interaction with them and all of a sudden you felt so much better. That's all ways that we're like communicating energy to one another. So if anybody's like confused on what we're talking about, I hope that's, clarifies it a little bit, because I think these are common experiences for people.
Yeah, there's a lot of large institutions that are really kind of investing in research in this area, and they have been for a while. Like the MD Anderson, I know, has a Reiki program for their patients, and then down at UC San Diego, I just found out there's this program. I can't remember the name of it, but there's this wonderful doctor, and she is exploring all kinds of different aspects of quantum physics and how it relates to healing and the biofield and all of this. So there is a lot of research out there. It used to be kind of very woo-woo, and they are ancient practices. The thing is that's interesting is people call a lot of these things new age, but these things are not new age. These are very ancient, wise practices. And so, there's theories about why we're taught that these things are woo-woo and, conspiracies and whatever, you want to call them. But it's just, the truth of the matter is everybody's had that experience where you walked into a room and you can tell that somebody's been having some type of conversation because the vibration is low and because we have these energy fields around us. So when we're mixing with other people, we can sense that. Yes. And so that, again, is why your intuition comes into play, because a lot of people, like, I don't know if you've experienced this with your kids, but I've had to explain to my kids, like, you were in a good mood, then you hung out with this person and that person wasn't in a good mood. And then now you're in a not so good mood because you kind of picked up some of their energy. So you have to be able to ask yourself after you have an interaction or you go somewhere or something happens and there's no reason why you're now not in a good mood, tap into yourself and ask, is this my energy? And if it's not your energy, send back with love anything that's not yours. And then, like I do this one energy practice every morning, and I'd like to share it with you if it's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
It is basically you wake up in the morning, or you can do this anytime throughout the day. I close my eyes because this is how I do it. And you just send any energy that's not aligned with your highest good down into the core of the earth to be transmuted into love and beneficial blessings. And I literally visualize it going down energetic roots, hitting the core of the earth. And then I feel it coming back up as love and beneficial blessings. And it kind of like lifts me up a little bit. And then I call in divine healing violet light through my crown chakra and all of my energy field to fill in the gaps where any energy was released, because we don't want to leave any open gaps for anything else to kind of fill it in. And then I visualize a golden toric field or torus around myself, which we all have. That's our energy body. And I visualize that is filtering out any energy below the frequency of love. And that's it. And I do this, if I'm in a yoga class, I'll do it for myself, and then I'll do it for the entire room. So I'll visualize everybody's energy that's not aligned with their highest good for the class down into the core of the earth, the violet light coming in, filling the gaps, and then the toric field around each of us individually and around the room. And there are people who are sensitive to energy that can tell when I do this. So it is a thing, And I think, we can do this I do it for the entire world, when I wake up in the morning and clear the energy that's not serving all beings. And the truth of the matter is, when you do this, it's not like my intention is not to take away all the challenges of life, because the fact of the matter is we're here in this physical life to experience challenges so that our souls can grow. And so a lot of the daily healing practices that I go through are grounding, which you did this morning when you went running through the forest.
Yes. I got a little lost. Almost missed my interview with Britt.
But that's such a lovely practice, right? Like that's grounding. You're smelling the trees, you're hearing the birds, you're in nature. It's beautiful. We all should be so lucky to be able to go do that every morning, or any morning for that matter. But grounding and bringing us into the present moment and being really here in this physical experience is important. And then inspiration is, joy and whatever lifts your heart and your soul. And for some people that's cooking, and for some people that's drawing or writing or painting. And for some people that's listening to music or going to see live music or dancing or, whatever it is for you. and then movement, which is, yoga, breath work, and then sometimes moving yourself from, away from certain relationships that might not be serving you. There's different forms of movement. You can just be aware of this idea throughout the day. Nourishment, which is nourishing thoughts, foods, and people. So some of these overlap a little bit. And then gratitude, which obviously is one of the highest frequencies and is so important for us to really show up and be present and be grateful for even during the challenging times. And then forgiveness, which is so super important, forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, forgiving situations, whatever it is, so that we can just release it and let it go. And then finally, grace, which is surrender and acceptance. And so, if we practice these 7 healing practices, and I call them practices because you're never going to be perfect at any of them. And some days you may be way more focused on gratitude than you are on inspiration. And those things, again, overlap. But if you're just aware of these concepts and you move through your day and you have the intention that this is how you're going to show up and live, and that these are important things to you, it allows you to experience healing in your mind, your body, and your soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love every one of those. Do you have something that outlines those that I could share with my audience?
Yeah. So I have the Daily Healing podcast that's on Spotify and Apple, and it's just guided meditations and lessons based on those things. And then I'm also writing a book that's called The Daily Healing: 7 Simple Practices to Become Your Own Greatest Healer. And so that'll be coming out eventually. But yeah, these are my core things that I teach. And then I do an annual art and wellness event that's called Healing House. I'm going to be doing it in January. And the one in January is going to be a fundraiser for City of Hope Cancer Treatment Centers. And so I go through these 7 practices at Healing House so that people can come, they can be inspired, but also empowered.
Yes.
I want them to have a wonderful experience while they're at Healing House and to learn about resources. And, I have Kelly Noonan-Gores, who did the Heal documentary. She spoke at the one that I did in Beverly Hills in 2024, and she's going to be at this one in Newport Beach. That's the fundraiser. So I have people that come and speak and share their wisdom as well, but we still go through those 7 healing practices so that people can leave and incorporate just the awareness into their life.
Yes. And I think this leads into something else that we wanted to touch on, which is intuition, because I noticed for myself, every one of those 7 practices that you mentioned is a big part of my life. And that was something that I just intuited. So I didn't really plan and say there are 7 practices and I want to practice each, one. I have always been very sensitive to energy since I was very young. I didn't know that's what it was. There's so much in my life that, again, it was intuited. I moved towards it because I was internally moved towards it. But when you're disconnected from your intuition, that can be challenging, right? I would assume that you wouldn't know, because there are some days where I'm like, I need to go to the woods. And I know that I need to go to the woods, right? There are some days where I know I need to do some breath work, or I need to go to a yoga class, or whatever it is, or I need uplifting music, or I need actually to listen to a really inspiring book or podcast. But that's a very self-led process. I don't sit down and say, okay, every day I'm going to do these 7 things for my energetic hygiene.
Right.
Let my internal compass guide me towards that. So if you're feeling disconnected from yourself or disconnected from your internal compass, is it harder to?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think especially because we live in this world that is so tech heavy. So when you are with your phone in your hand constantly, you're putting your energy outside of yourself. When we're looking to the outside world to receive all the time, that energy we're not focusing on our own intuition. We're not going inward. And then you have everything that's going on in the world, which we don't need to talk about, but that all stirs up things in our minds where we have thoughts going on. And is this true? And is that person, do they align with me? And, the fact of the matter is we all want to be loved, and we all want to love other people. And that's the bottom line. And so if we want to love ourselves, that's really where it starts. We can't really love other people until we really truly love ourselves. And you hear this and you say it to your kids and, but really we need to live like this.
Yeah.
And so by turning your energy and your attention inwards and really listening to that voice in your head and committing to honoring that, we're here. Our soul chose this physical experience to have lessons. And so if we're not listening to our soul, we're not paying attention to the lessons, we're not honoring the lessons. And so often those things will repeat. And then, we start, if we have energetic blocks because we're not doing any of these healing practices, it doesn't mean that you're a loser or anything like that. It just means, that's just a wake up call. When we get into accidents, when we lose things, that means we're not grounded, and so it's being aware of what are the symptoms of not being grounded? What are the symptoms of not having good self-esteem? What can you do? And so it's by doing these practices, you're working through all of the emotional things. Forgiveness is huge. I think for people who have something that they're holding a grudge against, their mind just spins on that thing and it creates so much imbalance. And so you can't hear your intuition when your mind is always going because you have to be still. And so, healing, what happens when we get these energetic blocks, and these energetic blocks are usually emotional, right? And so they get stored in some energy center in our body. And then we have the organs that are in that energy center that are receiving that stuck energy. And so that's where you get dis-ease. And so it is important to just always be asking yourself, like, how can I support my body? How can I, and the number one thing, if you don't do any of these practices or you can't remember any of them, just sitting in stillness and breathing, because we have so much noise coming from the world that the answers will come if you sit in stillness. And so yoga is a wonderful practice because you do have that savasana at the end. You're moving, you're inspiring, you're breathing, you're getting out of your head, whether you like it or not, because in order to get into a lot of those poses, you can't be thinking. You have to just be like, okay, wait, am I,
left arm, right arm, which way? I don't understand. Could you repeat that?
And so you can't have any thoughts, and that's a wonderful thing. And so then at the end, when you're like, oh, I've made it, and I can just be here. That's like the most beautiful pose. And it's the most difficult, a lot of people you can tell who's got the racing minds because they can't sit still.
Yes. The biggest feedback for me as a yoga teacher, the most important feedback, I guess, is when I look at my students while they're laying in savasana and I look at how still they are. So we enter savasana and I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks like they all died. Like they're just laying there so still.
Yay!
That is such like the biggest, I take that as such a huge win, because we moved and worked the energy and they are feeling safe. And they're feeling like they can actually release and surrender and be held in this energetic space.
Amazing.
Because I am holding them in an energetic space. And so I feel like, oh, we did it. Like, right. Because it's not me, it's we, right? It's all of us. We're all sharing energy in that space.
Yes.
I'm trying to guide that energy as the teacher in the class, but we are doing it together, and together we created peace in this space. And it's really so beautiful. It's my favorite part of teaching.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I know that Tai Chi and Qigong, and there's so many other energy practices that people find value in. I just personally haven't practiced those things, but I love watching, like when we lived in San Francisco, there was this one park where all of the, it was near Chinatown. So it was a lot of the Chinese people would go to this park in the morning and they would all do Tai Chi together. And it was so beautiful to watch them move through the movements, because it is very different from yoga. And Qigong is, moving energy as well. So there's a lot of great YouTube videos for people who are interested to just kind of check it out. out and see if it resonates with them, because some people just have like, I don't want to do yoga,
Yeah.
so for those people, like, I think it's just important to explore. Even watching people do Tai Chi, I think probably has some health benefits for you, because they're so slow and it's so meditative, and it's just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it is. And I bet it does, because it brings you to the present moment, right? It
Yes.
brings you very much present moment awareness, slowing those thoughts in the mind, grounding, like you
Yes.
mentioned. Can we go back a little bit and talk about forgiveness? Because I want
Yes.
to delve into that a little bit more deeply. I
Yeah,
think we could probably do a whole episode on that, but
for
I
sure.
agree with you how important that is, but it's also really hard for some
Yeah,
people because some people have experienced some really challenging things, and forgiveness may not come easily.
yeah,
So, do you have guidance for people who are
absolutely.
struggling in that area?
Yeah, I think thank you for asking this, because forgiveness is really, really important. And it's something that's the one that I think most people have physical dis-ease because they hold on to stuff. So it's really important. First of all, I think compassion in all of these practices and just in life is so important, and is really like a guiding, the non-judgment, non-attachment, and having
Hmm.
compassion. Because the thing is about forgiveness is you can forgive somebody and say, I forgive you, but those thoughts and memories of that thing are still going to come up. It's not like you're going to forget. And so it is about forgiving yourself for any situation. Even if you felt like you were in a victim in a situation, there's still some aspect of you that feels a responsibility. And so it's really important to forgive yourself and the other person. And then also it's important to know that by having compassion for yourself and the other person, you're going to recognize that this is going to come up again. And so when it comes up again, the good thing is if you're aware of doing forgiveness practices, it won't have the same charge emotionally. The energy will not feel as intense. So the more that you can practice forgiveness in those moments when something comes up, or you find yourself in a situation that feels the same as that thing that you already forgave or you need to forgive. And that's why we have these beautiful lessons that keep coming to us if we
Hmm.
haven't learned them, or if there's something still to learn, is always having that mindset of, okay, this is, showing itself to me again because there's something else that I need to learn here. And then going and sitting in stillness. But when I do Healing House, I've had two really powerful experiences where people have come up to me afterwards and shared things with me. And at one of the Healing Houses, I had a trans woman who came up to talk to me afterwards, and she had been going through, there was some physical something that happened, and there were
Hmm.
some friend stuff that happened, and she was just having a hard time surrendering and accepting. She was like, forgiveness and grace were the two things that she was like, I need you to help me.
Yeah.
And so it's like just having compassion for yourself is not sticking. So there's a difference between staying in victim mentality and allowing yourself to still see yourself as the victim
Hmm.
versus having forgiveness and compassion. Because the thing is when you have compassion, you can still be empowered. When you're a victim, you're not empowered. So it's
Hmm.
really about, taking that power back, and then recognizing that you're not always going to be able to fix things. It's
Hmm.
just like with healing. If you have a
Yeah.
physical ailment, we are not all meant to live forever. We
Hmm.
are all going to have a date when we're not in this physical body anymore. And that's how it's designed. And
Hmm.
so we have to accept that. And so a lot of healing work has to do with facing your fear of death and your fear of being alone, because fear of
Hmm.
being alone is basically a fear of death.
Hmm.
It's all kind of goes back to that. So compassion is really important. And with forgiveness practices, this last healing house that I did, there was a woman there who had lost her home in the Pacific Palisades fire, and she had a lot of anger.
Hmm.
And so I ran through a practice with them, and I can share it with your listeners, where I had them think about the thing that they wanted to forgive. And I had them rub their hands together really fast until they felt heat, and just keep rubbing it and thinking about that thing, and feel where you feel that resentment, anger, whatever, sadness in your body while you're rubbing your hands, and put all of that energy that you feel out of your body and into your hands. so that you can release it. And then when you're ready, shake it off and shake it into the earth to be transmuted into love and beneficial blessings. As you're shaking it, visualize the thing that you're releasing going into the earth.
Yeah.
And this is a really powerful practice because it engages the physical aspect of it. You feel the heat and then you release it and you shake it off. And then you know that when you're shaking it off, it's going to be transmuted into love and beneficial blessings. So it's serving in the most beautiful way. And you can do this practice anytime. Do you know what I mean? And if it comes up again, you can do it again. And it will always, it will give you a way to feel like you're actually doing something that's making a difference. Nobody else needs to know what you're doing, but you know.
Yeah. I love that because really, when we are stuck in a state of non-forgiveness, we're holding on to that negative energy, right? So we don't want to forgive the other person or the situation because we feel victimized, as you mentioned. And it's almost like forgiving is saying that what happened was okay. But that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is, giving up the hope. And this is a definition that I think Oprah said years ago, which is giving up the hope that the past could be any different than what it was. And then deciding to be compassionate, as you mentioned, with yourself and not carry that negative energy and release it. So having a actual physical practice, like you mentioned, that allows you to do that takes you out of the mind and into the body is so powerful. So I love that. And like you said, it's going to come up again. Like it's like energy, through all the energy work that I've done, like that people have done on me, what I notice is that you can't really release it all at once. It seems like it's you purge a certain amount, but then more will bubble up later, and then you have to let go of that, and then more, and it's an ongoing practice, especially if something was really, really charged and really difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting because I went from the master's degrees in marriage and family therapy and art therapy, and that's very much about talking and, creating art, and that's a beautiful thing. And then now I'm on the other end of the spectrum where the art is transmitting healing to people and they are just receiving it. I call it passive healing, where you're just basically receiving healing. It's similar to going to a Reiki session. And then, I think it's really important that people understand that energy. So you can go to therapy, which is a wonderful thing if you're in an acute situation and you're really, need something to help you process something that's happened. That's very valuable. But I think people get stuck in the loop of going to therapy and it becomes sort of like they don't never kind of empower themselves to be like, oh, I don't need to go to therapy anymore. Like I've healed this. And I think part of the reason is because there's an energetic, every time that you're going to therapy and you're talking about the thing that traumatized you, your frequency is going to that same frequency where you were when you were traumatized. So you need, I believe you need to work with an energy healer at the same time so that you can let that energy go. And then, when you're working with the therapist, have them also working with the energy healer so that they know what the energy healer is releasing, And so I think that is a really powerful way to get people results where they really feel like they have released the burden, so to speak, of whatever it was that they were carrying, especially if it's a super traumatic thing like, loss of a loved one or, even sometimes loss of a career or, or a relationship or, so it's really powerful. But I think when we do these daily energy hygiene practices and where we release anything that's not serving us, it sets your baseline at a higher level, And so you're entering the day, when you do it at the beginning of the day and you do it at the end of the day, you're entering the day with a clean slate. And you are then more aware of when you're picking up things. So one of my daughters is a performer. She has been, and she's picks up energy from people because she's up on stage. And so, you know, and I'm sure that by doing podcasts and, you know, putting yourself out there in the media in any way, you're receiving energy. So it is important to be able to be aware, again, as I said, of what's your energy. And you know, when your energy has been sort of shifted in some way, when you are paying attention to it every day. And so then the intuition piece comes in as well, because, you know, like you were saying, knowing which healing practices you're going to be drawn towards and what you already are doing. There's a lot of people who are just like in that survival mode where they can't even think about healing practices, or they can, but they just don't realize that they can because they're so busy here. So I think it's just being gentle and having compassion with ourselves, and realizing that energy is a part of life that we haven't really been taught about, you know, on the mass level. And so now we're moving into a period of time where we're more aware of it. And so it becomes a sense of responsibility, I believe. You know, you can't be aware of the importance of energy and keeping your energy clean, energy hygiene, like taking a shower every morning or brushing your teeth. You can't be aware that that's something that you need to do and then just ignore it. Right. You know? So as a, you know, as a society, I think now it's beautiful. My kids are all grown, but you know, they're all over 20. So if you have young children, I think it's really important to start talking to them about energy. And one of my friends has a 10-year-old son, and she just says, you know, if he comes home from school and he's in a bad mood, he just goes into his room and says, clear. And like empowers himself to just clear his energy field. When he says that, he visualizes his energy field going clear. And releasing anything that, you know, and so giving kids this kind of idea and awareness so that they can recognize when they've picked up somebody else's energy or when their energy is off, and then giving them the awareness to go take care of it. And you can.
And you can. Yeah. It's really amazing. And I totally agree with you on the awareness piece. I mean, that is always the first step. And then it's permission giving too. Like I kind of feel, because we all have intuition. Every single person on this planet has intuition. Absolutely. You might think you're totally disconnected from your intuition. You are not. It might be a little quieter than somebody else, right? Yeah. But it's there. And I think that, because I went through many, many years of being disconnected from my intuition. But in retrospect, I think part of that disconnection was I was not giving myself permission. So I would get intuitive, you know, feelings, callings, whatever you want to, pulls, whatever you want to call them. But then I wouldn't give myself permission to follow them. And so I think that's a really important piece. Like, give yourself permission, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it like seems silly. Like, I remember the first time I hugged a tree, I was like, I am actually losing it. Like I hope to God no one walks by right now. Like, I was in the woods by myself, and like, God forbid another hiker comes along, I'm hugging this tree. But it was at a really crucial moment. A friend of mine had just lost her husband after a battle with cancer, and literally he had passed away that morning. I had actually gone to yoga that morning and like just literally cried through the entire practice. And then I was like, I'm going to take my dog on my daily walk. And so we went on our walk, and I just was like, I feel like I need to hug this tree. But also felt like ridiculous, like hugging a tree. But I allowed myself, right? I gave myself permission. I did it. And it was amazing, the energy that came out of that tree and how healing it was to me in that moment. So
there is science behind that, you know.
I'm not surprised. I mean, it was so powerful. And I always knew going to the woods, and we all know there's a lot of science behind, you know, the benefits to our mental and physical health when we go into nature. And nature has a very strong energetic field. But then to actually like be in contact with a piece of like a physical contact with a piece of nature and the energy field that it emitted is really powerful.
Yeah. I know. It's funny. I went to Lollapalooza this year.
Okay. I've never heard of that, but I don't know what it is, shamefully.
Okay, so it's a music festival with like 100,000 people. So being a
Okay.
sensitive energy, being around
Yes.
100,000 people was crazy.
Yeah.
And so I found a tree that I hugged, and my daughter
Yeah.
took a
Yeah.
picture of it because I was like, oh my gosh, I need this tree right now because I just need to like connect with nature because all of these people it's too much,
It
you know?
is. It is. And you mentioned, with me and podcasting and picking up energies. And it's one of the things that I love about doing this podcast is that I have amazing, amazing guests like you, and the energy and we didn't actually discuss this, but energy is non-local, right? So you don't have to be actually like in physical proximity to someone to
Yeah.
receive or give energy. And so the energy that emits from the person that I'm interviewing is delicious and amazing. And like, I just want to soak it up. And it's like one of the best parts of doing this show,
Yeah.
is that I get that energetic transmission from these
Yeah.
beautiful guests who come onto my show. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank
Lovely.
you. Wait, I just want to explain that a little bit, even though I'm not a scientist. I'm not talking about this from a scientific perspective, only from my understanding. So energy, some people have a hard time conceiving of the fact that you're there and I'm here and there's this energetic transfer. And that's because we think of it in the physical. So you have to think of it almost like in terms of the internet or in terms of this quantum field that's around us. There is no time and space in the quantum field. We're all together. We are all one. And so the reason that we have this connection is I cannot remember this movie. This is the second interview where I've talked about this movie. I can't remember the name of the movie. I just remember the scene. I think it's Dustin Hoffman, and he's got two objects underneath a blanket. And he's talking about how you think this is one object and this is another object, but this blanket over them, it connects everything. It's all one field. And so so you can be where you are and I can be where I am, but we are connected by this field. And so when we connect our awareness, our energies are connected. And so that's why we can do this. And that's why, so every month for my subscribers, I do a free remote Reiki healing for everybody on the first of the month. And I do that because it's quantum. I don't need to be on any Zoom or anything like that. I'm just connecting with my subscribers who have basically said, yes, please send me healing by subscribing. And I'm able to send them healing on the first of every month. And I do that so that I'm giving back to them in a way that, and they can tap into that. If they know at 11/11 on the first of the month, they're going to be receiving healing, they can choose to either sit and receive it and be in stillness in that moment and use that as like a way to start their month, or they can go about their day and just know, hey, I'm getting healing right now. It's either way, it's fine.
Yeah.
But it is happening in that quantum field. And the reason that I don't do it on a Zoom or anything like that is because I want people to start getting aware of the fact that this exists.
Yes. Yes. So there is a lot of science on exactly what you're talking about. In yoga, they call it, I think the story was Indra's nest. I could have that wrong. I will double check that. But the idea is that we're all kind of one point of consciousness. So if you can imagine almost like a grid-like pattern of these little focal points of energy, which is consciousness, but then they're all connected, right? Because the energetic fields are all overlapping. So we make a net. Indra's net is what it's called. So we make a net. So we're all our own focal point of consciousness connected by our energy fields that creates this entire energy field, right?
Right.
But if you go to science, there is, I don't know if you are familiar with emotion code therapy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I had an episode on that too. I can link it in this show. And I had that done for myself. And I read the book that the person who developed the emotion code therapy, I read the book, and they talked about an experiment where they took war veterans who had seen combat, gone through combat. And they took some blood from them, took some blood cells from them, and then they put them in petri dishes and they sent them across the country. And then they took these men and they sat them down and they showed them a movie, like an uplifting, like heartfelt, beautiful movie. Mm-hmm. And they watched how the cells responded. And the frequency, the vibrational frequency of the cells went up. And then they showed them a movie where there was combat. It was war combat, and the vibrational frequency of the cells went down.
Mm-hmm.
These are cells that are no longer physically attached to these people, and they are across the country. And that is how they responded. So that is how your cells are responding, right?
Yeah. And just building on that, which is an amazing example, there's also when you're a mother and you have a child, some of your child cells are left inside of your body, just as your child is made up of half your cells. So imagine our energetic fields with just what you were talking about with their blood, and then being a mother and having a child. And like, I have this whole theory on mother's intuition. It's actually your intuition because your child was in you.
Yes.
Yes. But it was crazy when my kids were little. I would wake up before in the middle of the night and then they would start crying. Yes. So it was like, I knew that they were awake before they cried, you know?
Yep.
And so we do. And so it all comes into this intuition, and also talking about responsibility. So I think it's just really important that people pay attention to, if you're feeling low, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling anything of a lower vibration or frequency than where you want to be, don't choose to watch media that brings your frequency down lower, because there's a sense of responsibility. Like, you can't just keep, allowing yourself to, well, you can, that's the thing. We have free will, but ideally, if you want to heal, and if that's something that is a, important thing to you, and wellness is important, and, you have a family and you want to be around for, whatever, as long as you're supposed to be here. I think it's important for us to really pay attention to what we're focusing on, because when you're watching a movie for 2 hours or an hour and a half, and it's all people shooting them up and whatever, that's a frequency that your body is absorbing, that your mind is absorbing, and that your soul is absorbing. So, just being aware when it comes to energy hygiene of all of the things that are impacting you, and just noticing without judgment or attachment, and then making changes or shifts or, adjusting things as needed. Yeah. But, it's interesting. It's like, things like alcohol lower your frequency, and there's a lot of people right now. And I do believe that we are at a shift in our consciousness right now. I do believe that more and more people are aware of all of these things that we've been talking about. And the reason that I say that is because I'm at the grocery store hearing random people who you would never think would be aware of these things talking about it with the checkout, with the women at the checkout. Amazing. You know what I mean? And so it's, these conversations are being had, and a lot of people are just, whether it's the news cycles making people scratch their heads about what is real, But whatever it is, I think it's, it's a good thing for everybody to take responsibility for their energy, and to pay attention to and connect with people who are on that same frequency, and or maybe a little bit higher of a frequency, if that's what you need, and creating is really important right now too, because when you're scrolling on your phone and you're watching TV, you're consuming. And so that actually lowers your frequency. So creation, the inspiration piece of everything is creation, and when we are creating, we are bringing our gifts into the world. And so whatever that means for you, some people it's science, some people it's art, some people it's food, some people it's just being, and so, and then that is like kind of the final piece of all of this that I think for me that I personally am really focused on right now is we are trained in our society that we have to do. And you want to be successful, you have to hustle. And there's an element of that for sure. But the one piece that we really need to focus on, and it's really key right now, is being. Yes. And that's compassion for yourself. And that is just learning to sit in stillness. And, if you can only do it for a minute a day, then stretch it out to 2 minutes, then stretch it out, and you'll get up to 15 at one point in time. But just giving yourself this space and time to just be with no screen in front of your face, no book, no nothing. Yeah. It's so uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's like Savasana,
Yeah. Because then the mind starts to do what the mind does. And we want to escape that becomes, sometimes can be uncomfortable, and we want to escape it. But if we just allow it, like you said, with compassion, without judgment, it will settle out. right? The ripples, the ripples of the mind will settle out if you can just be patient enough to sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can experience what we call in meditation the gap, right? That little space in between thoughts
Yeah.
that is actually who you are. That's who you are. When you meet that space, that's actually who you are. And that's your connection to your higher self and to the divine. And at first, that gap is going to be a millisecond. But over time, it will expand and you will meet yourself more often and with greater depth and greater clarity. But you have to practice and you have to be patient and you have to have compassion for yourself while you do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And I think, I want to go back to what you were talking about, this responsibility. Like once you have awareness, you have responsibility. And it's, yes, to yourself, to your family, to your coworkers, to whoever you're around. But it's actually also a responsibility to the world at
Yes.
large. We are living in a time that there's a lot going on. And many of us can't, there's nothing much we can do in our everyday lives to change that. But we can manage our energy
Yeah.
and we can raise the vibration of the world by raising our own vibration. And you just have to believe the truth that actually does matter, that does make a change in the world. And it's our responsibility to do it. We are blessed to be where we are in our lives and the countries that we live in, and we may have a lot of blessings in our lives, and it is our responsibility to help raise the collective energy of the planet.
Right. And what you were just saying, I often say when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. And it does go back to that blanket, if you
Yes.
are taking care of your own energy, that's all you need to do. Because that when your energy is at a higher vibration and you are out in the world, as we were talking about earlier, when you're around somebody who has a higher vibration, it lifts you up.
Yeah.
And so when we are maintaining that higher frequency, we are actually just helping the world be a better place by just being us, by just being, and so it's a sense of responsibility. And I think it's starting to click with more people, because we have this sense that we want to help save the world. All of us do. We have that. And so then, and then when you realize when you save yourself, you are saving the world because we're all part of the same energetic field. And so, it's a really interesting time right now.
It is. But I agree with you. I feel like this is a time of awakening, of reckoning, of something. Something's happening right now. And I really believe that the really difficult things that are going on are actually informing or helping with this awakening. Not that we want anyone to suffer, of course, but I do think that, source, consciousness, divine, whatever words you want to use, this is all an intelligent design. And that part of that design is we're going to elevate our consciousness. We're going to raise the vibration of the planet by seeing what we don't want and making much better choices and having that spread throughout the world. So anyway, that is my belief on it. But if people want to stay informed, they want to watch the news because they feel that it's important to them to stay informed. After they do that, is there a specific energetic practice that you think would be good to help them kind of transmute that energy that they just took in?
Yeah, I mean, that practice that I talk about where you're releasing anything that's not serving you, filling in the gaps with divine violet light, and then putting a toric field around yourself or a golden sphere, if that's easier for you to visualize around yourself, to filter out anything below the frequency of love. If you can do that while you're watching the news or when you're doing that, scrolling on social media or whatever it is that you're doing, I think that is a way to keep your energy clean, but also know that I struggle with this myself because I used to be so into, and I was raised with the TV and the news every night. My parents would come home from work and sit down and watch the news and have a martini and whatever, it was just a different time, and so like, that's part of my upbringing,
Right,
And
right.
so I actually don't watch any TV. If I sit down and there's a TV on, I'm watching like healing frequency videos or interviews with people on consciousness. Like that's the programming that I choose.
Right, right.
And so I think that, it's fine to look at the news and see what's going on, but I think to try and stay detached and to know that whatever news that you're seeing is not the only thing that's going on in the world. So like,
Yes,
while we're
yes.
focused on this terrible thing that's happening in this one place in the United States or in the world, there's beautiful things that are never going to be reported on going on.
Right.
There's way more amazing things going on. Babies being born, people being saved, people being healed, whatever, love.
Yeah.
And that's just not reported on the news. And so if we choose to focus our attention on, I almost called it attenergy.
That's actually, I like that.
If we choose to focus our attenergy on something that's low frequency, what element of responsibility do we have in that being something that kind of lowers the vibration for the energy, the whole energetic field? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I do it. I do watch the news, on social media. But I always ask myself, like, is this serving the highest good? No,
right.
It's not.
Yeah.
So, I think it's getting out of habits and patterns that aren't serving slowly and having compassion with yourself while you're doing that, but maybe just moving toward eventually not paying, your attenergy to that.
Yes. I think you need to coin that word. That's fantastic. I might have to steal that. Yeah. I will credit you. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I watch very, very little news because I don't find it helpful in any way, right? So it decreases my vibrational frequency, and I can't change, what's going on. But, people want to be informed for voting and things like that. So I know, people are going to want to stay informed, and I respect that. And
sure.
And I just want to give them a practice that can then help them, right?
Yes,
so that we can,
absolutely.
okay, I watch my news, I feel informed, but I kind of have this ick factor going on now, right? That I've watched it or I've consumed it in some way. let me clear this out.
Well, and you just
made it forward.
Yeah, you just made a really good point, is to pay attention to your energy when you are consuming that content. How does your body feel? Because if you physically feel your frequency lower, or you get a pit in your stomach or whatever, that's really important. Then clear it. Always clear it. When you feel something ick in your body, always clear that. That's like the sign that you're like, okay, anything not serving the highest good, I release it into the earth to be transmuted into love and beneficial blessings. I call in violet light to fill in the gaps where any energy was released, and a golden toric field around me to filter out anything below the frequency of love. And the more that you can do that, whenever you sense yourself kind of dropping into a lower frequency, the better.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. All right. Well, I will put all ways of reaching you in the show notes, so anyone listening can get in touch with you, and I'll keep you updated on my Reiki training. I'm very excited. And thank you so much for being here, Britt. This was fantastic.
Thank you.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I had so much fun talking to Britt. I think the big takeaway or takeaways from this episode are how important it is to manage our own energy. And in order to do that, we have to be aware of it. We have to know what's going on inside of us and around us so that we can do what we need to do to raise our own vibration. And we know that through a big piece of how we know what's going on inside of us is that piece of intuition, getting in touch with our higher selves, our soul, and listening for what we need, right? Because Britt listed a bunch of different things that we can do, practices that we can do to help raise our vibration. But from day to day, the practices that you may need are going to vary based on what's going on in your own energy field and in the energy fields that you're coming in contact with. So really getting in touch with who you are at your essence, your higher self, that internal compass, being heart-led. This is where you're going to start to get those intuitive downloads about what it is that your body, mind, and soul need at any particular moment. So I hope that this was helpful to you. If you are interested in an episode about forgiveness, I would love to know. So please just, if you're listening on Spotify, you can comment directly there. You can email me. I'll put my email in the show notes, or you can DM me on Instagram. And last, but certainly not least, I am still looking for individuals to come and get coaching with me on the podcast. So if you have a particular topic you are struggling with, maybe it's intuition, maybe you have a really hard time with accessing your intuition, or maybe it's your own energy, your own vibration, being able to raise your vibration, or being able to recognize when you're out of alignment with your true self. Maybe you're experiencing a lot of anxiety. Maybe you are, having trouble uncovering your purpose. Maybe you're having trouble having the courage to take the next steps towards your purpose. Really, any of the topics that we talk about on this show, I can coach you through. So use the link in my show notes and get a spot on my calendar. You can remain completely anonymous if that is what you would like. I want you to feel safe. I want you to feel comfortable. I want this to be an opportunity for you to get to know yourself on a deeper level so that you can move towards alignment. And that is the whole reason that I'm doing it. So hop on there. It would be so much fun. I promise you. And I will see you next week, my friends. Namaste. I love you so much. Thank you for joining me on this journey of self-discovery here at the Midlife Purpose Project. I hope today's conversation sparked something deep inside of you, made you laugh, or reminded you that you are never alone. Remember, it's never too late to reconnect with your soul's purpose and live a life of meaning. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the show, or share it with someone who could use a little inspiration. It really helps the show reach more women and helps me keep the content ad-free. Join me next time as we continue to explore what it means to live with purpose in midlife.